Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another 1/12 scale figure unboxing and review video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at the Birth of Iron Man edition for the Mark 1 suit. Now I have taken a look at the Tony Stark figure, I really liked it, it wasn't 100% flawless, but this guy right here, looks like he's going to be stealing the show on the 1/12 shelf, and I cannot wait to get him out here. Now if you'd like to pick up your very own Iron Man Mark 1, or indeed the Tony Stark, they are in stock right now with toyswonderland.com, and of course the link for that is in the description below. They do have 12-month payment plans now available if you're a fan of paying off your figures over time. Also, while you are down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon so you're notified as soon as brand new content goes live on the channel. Also, if you're a fan of early access content and want a 5% off code for toyswonderland.com, check out the join button for Justin's Collection Plus. Hit the button right next to the subscribe icon and it'll tell you a little bit more. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here of course we have the box art for the Iron Man Mark 1, the Birth of Iron Man edition. Just like Tony, he has this metallic effect all over the entire front and side and pretty much the entire packaging. I love the way it looks. It has a really classy look. As soon as I opened up the shipper, it just was shimmering, and I love how it comes across. An image of the Mark 1 on the front there, on the side, and some of the details on the back. I've already seen a review of this guy, and I have to say, I couldn't be more excited to take a look at all of these flame effect accessory pieces. He comes with a bunch, and if there's one thing that I know about Tamashii, it's that when they do effect pieces, which isn't all that often, especially when it comes to Dragon Ball figures, they look pretty darn awesome. And here we have the Mark 1 himself. I have to say, being a relatively teeny tiny Mark 1, this guy looks to be chock full of detail. I cannot wait to zoom in and take a closer look at him. But what we are going to do now is get all of this stuff laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of the accessories that come with the Mark 1. While it is slim pickings here, and most of them are for the display base, I'm honestly perfectly fine with it. I couldn't imagine giving anything else to the Mark 1 other than what it comes with right here. Starting off with the display base first, you can see, yes, it is a very obvious rectangle, maybe one of the flaws of the fire effect. Still, I really like it. It's a very nice matte finish. You can see some feathering of the yellow to the orange to the red, and of course to the subtle black as well. It looks fantastic. You can then take these pieces, they are keyed to only go one way, you plug them in, then you have the full effect there with the flames coming out of the feet themselves. I love the feathering of the white and a nice blend throughout the entire thing. You can then take your Mark 1, you can see there are some little balls along the front there that nicely correspond to the base itself. It's a very positive fit and it should stop your Mark 1 from toppling over on the shelf. It's simple, but very effective. Now he does come with two other flame effects. These aren't that matte finish, they're a nice gloss. Which do I prefer, the matte finish or the gloss? I'm honestly leaning towards the glossy effect. It looks really good, it looks alive, and it looks very nicely lit up, especially under some harsh LED lights. I love the orange to the yellow transition, and of course you do get two, so you can have your badass Mark 1 posed with two flame effects. You do also get this creepy piece here, which, yes, is an interchangeable set of eyes, but bear with me, I do think Figuarts or Bandai are onto something. So of course, you take your Mark 1, you do have to separate the faceplate, which is kind of non-trivial to do, but once you have it off, you can see there is some space in there. You take the eyes, which are of course meant to be Tony Stark's eyes, you do have to push them in rather firmly, otherwise you might have a challenge closing up the mask itself, which is again relatively non-trivial to do, but you'll feel it once you get it and it'll click very nicely in place. And there you can see the eyes of Tony. You can have an empty suit or a fully suited Tony. It's completely up to you. I hope that one day, when Hot Toys gives us a 3.0 version of the Mark 1 in diecast, they give us the option to remove the actual head sculpt from inside the mask so we can have it hollow inside the suit of armor. That would be a really nice touch and something that I'm hoping they do. The only other pieces that he comes with are the interchangeable hands. They're just a flat blackish brown color, and to actually switch them out, it's a bit of a pain. You do have to completely disassemble the arm, you take off both armor pieces, then you can remove the hand. Yes, it makes for a more seamless look. Don't get me wrong, I prefer them to make it as seamless as possible, but then again, these pieces are rather fiddly, so it can get a little bit challenging, especially when you have a bunch of other moving pieces. What we are going to do now, though, is get the Mark I himself properly set up on the turntable and take a closer look. And here we have the Figuarts Mark I standing straight up and down the lightbox, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And I have to say, this guy has a presence. He looks totally awesome. I love that pretty much every surface is either covered in paint or sculpt or some kind of other detail, whether it's wires or little bits and pieces that are plugged on, such as the propane canisters. This guy is a feast for the eyes, and I love the way he looks. I'm pretty sure even months after you've had him already in your display and you've been posing him up, you're going to be discovering even more pieces that can move, even more little bits and pieces of detail that's dotted throughout the entire suit. That's the benefit of the Mark I, I guess. It's that really early rudimentary design for an Iron Man suit of armor, and that means there's going to be a lot more visible components, and it definitely is visible on this guy right here. What we are going to do now, though, is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal, and I have to say, this figure looks absolutely fantastic. I know I gave Figuarts a little bit of a talking to about their weathering on some of the previous figures that we looked at, but honestly, this time, they've done a really good job. I love the way this comes across. It's nice and dirty and gnarly, and it's chipped and it looks like metal, and especially at this scale, it stands out. I'm loving the way this guy looks. Also, one thing that's immediately catching my eye is the arc reactor. It's got a reflective sort of tone over the top, but it's also a nice frosted white, so it looks like it's lit up most of the time. That's a really nice touch because, of course, you're not going to have lights inside this piece. You may as well do something like that, and I'm glad they've done it. Let's take a look at that head sculpt. I do have the eyes still on the inside. That looks really good. It's convincing. It looks like there's someone inside the helmet, and yes, they are a little bit creepy when you don't have the faceplate on, but when you do, I think it just works, and it fits perfectly in that helmet. Speaking of the helmet, and of course speaking of the armor, look how nicely the entire thing is sculpted. There is just so much surface detail throughout the entire piece. There's dents, there's scratches, there's pitting, there's wear and tear, there's oil stains, there's rust effect like on this piece right here. This thing is gorgeous throughout. I'm seeing even more dints on the back. Just no matter where you're looking, even down here, you can just see it's chock full of detail. This sort of compressor engine type piece that kind of looks like an air conditioner stuck on the back there with a little propane. I'm assuming that's propane or some kind of gas, and of course even more canisters on the side there, and of course this is his switch that he uses to initiate flight. You have it on the inside. There is just so much to see here, and I think Bandai really went to town with the detailing on this thing. They said, you know, we're gonna do a Mark I. We are going to do it right. We're going to pretty much put as much detail and as much paintwork as we can into this and not break the bank. And that they have done. This thing comes across marvelously, and honestly, I'm so glad I picked him up. Now the question is, do I go ahead and pick up even more Figuarts Iron Man suits and create the 1/12 scale Hall of Armor? I've got the Tony Stark now, and of course I have the Mark I. I'm thinking that might be something I have to do. Let me know down in the comments below. Now I know you've already seen this in the Tony Stark video, but for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the Mark I standing alongside Tony. It looks really good, and if you haven't seen the Tony Stark video, first of all, go check it out, but basically what I said is that there's a little bit of height on the Mark I versus the bare, sort of regular suited Tony Stark. That makes perfect sense, because the Mark I, while it is big and wide and bulky, it doesn't add that much in the way of height. It's just his regular boots with some metal pieces on the bottom there, so it really makes sense that this is the scale they've gone with, and to be honest, I think it's accurate. And of course, compared to the Figuarts Armored Red Ranger, this works. The Mark I is huge in comparison, and I think that works very, very nicely for this scale. As I said in the previous video, the Tony video, This is Jason, he's a teenager. It makes sense for the Mark I especially to be big and bulky compared to just a regular spandex-suited person, so for me, I really like the way this looks. And finally, here we have the Mark I next to the Hasbro Black Series Mando. No, this comparison's not meant to say that you can cross over your MCU figures with your Star Wars figures, unless of course you wanted to do so. It's more meant to show how a Hasbro product scales next to the Mark I, because a lot of people do have the Black Series Mando, so you can take your Black Series Mando, pop it next to whichever figure you'd like to go alongside your Mark I, and therefore you'll be able to see if it'll fit in your collection before purchasing. But still, this works really nicely. Mando is not too tall, Mark I is not too small, which I thought he was going to be, so honestly, I'm happy with this scale. Just going over articulation on the Figuarts Mark I. Bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the Mark I, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Starting off with the head sculpt itself, it is fairly limited, but it does have a movable neck as well, so going back isn't too much of an issue, going forward not that much. You have swivel side to side and a bit of pivot as well. The arms themselves have moving shoulder pads, they go up and out very nicely, and as you can see, gives you the maximum range of motion that's kind of possible with a big bulky suit of armor. You do of course have the arms going all the way forward. Luckily, the shoulder pad is connected to the arm. That means it'll move independently of the body itself. You do of course have a butterfly joint there as well, a bend at the elbow, but due to the fact that all this stuff is big and clunky, you don't have a hell of a lot of range of motion. And of course, swivel at the bicep. You do have some articulation in the hand, but I'd advise dismantling the arm first, moving the hand, and then putting it all back together. The torso itself has a swivel. It's literally just a swivel. There's no pivot forward and back. It's just side to side. The legs themselves can drop down, which gives you an even further range of motion forward, and out is of course fairly limited due to these tank-style treads around the outside there, but going out to about there. Swivel at the upper thigh, and of course you do have a bend at the knee, but it's fairly restricted due to all of this stuff, including these hoses down the back. You don't really have much swivel from the thigh itself, it's more coming from the leg connection. Down at the feet here, you do have pretty much a really nice extensive range of motion, and not really anything for the toe itself. Just wrapping up on the Figuarts Mark I from of course Iron Man 1. This guy has really impressed me. So far I've reviewed a couple of Figuarts releases and they've been fairly good. They're great quality pieces, don't get me wrong, paint application and sculpt is always pretty good, but they've been a little bit soft. This guy, on the other hand, is chock full of detail both in sculpt and in paint. There is so much going on here, and I love the way he looks. And of course, he comes with that really awesome flame effect display base and the flamethrower pieces as well, something that I think is honestly 100% necessary for a Mark I. It brings the entire thing to life. It looks like a teeny tiny mini statue to pop on your desk, and I love the way he looks. He's pretty much entirely seamless because it's a proper jointed mech style suit anyway. You would expect to see bits and pieces that can move, so for me, I'm really liking how this looks, even more so than some of the other smaller 6-inch to 7-inch scale figures that are on the market for the Mark I. This guy gets my vote. Now if you'd like to pick up your very own Mark I, he is in stock right now with toyswonderland.com. The link for that is of course in the description below. They have 12-month payment plans now available if you're a fan of paying off your figures over time. Also, while you are down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.